Hello and welcome back to the Drag Detective, where today we are going to follow up the last video I made, which was the riggery of All Stars 1, and we're going to try and look at how this season would have went if it was not rigged, if it was just judged completely fairly. Unfortunately, the team twist is still going to be here. The rules are still all going to be in place. One queen gets to lip sync from the pair, and another queen can jump in if they want. But we will have a video where we'll look at this season if it was like All Stars 2, 3, 4, whatever, later. But for now, we're just going to do the team twist and just look at the season objectively and see maybe how different it would have been. Now, before we get started, first make sure that you are following me on Instagram and Twitter. And also check out the official Drag Detective podcast on both Spotify and Apple Music. New episodes coming out very soon. Also, if you are able, maybe check out my Patreon, where we have an All-Star 6 draft. We have exclusive videos once a month, and you get access to the Drag Detective Discord server, where we talk shit on the new seasons and just kiki and have fun. So with that all out of the way, let's start talking about All Stars 1. Obviously, I have many issues with this season, as I think many people do, and we solved the mystery that, yeah, I do think this season was rigged for Chad Michaels to win, which is not inherently a bad thing. We all love Chad, but let's see if she makes it to the end if we were to look at the season objectively. So the first episode, we have all of our teams. They're all picked. None of them change, obviously. But we have the photo shoot challenge and the Team Unity runway. I thought that this episode was judged very wonky, like very, very wonky. To me, there was an obvious winning team. This team, I felt in both photo shoots that they had to do, took it to the next level by making them more avant-garde, more high concept, which I felt none of the other teams quite matched as well as this team did. And then their Team Unity runway was clean, it was concise, and it showed team unity. So really, I felt like this was the obvious choice to win this first episode, and that is Rujubee. So already Manila and Latrice do not get their win in this episode, but I still did put them in the high placement. I felt like their runway was fun. They had the iPad and the Teletubby thing, which didn't really make sense, but not many of the runways on this episode really did. So yeah, and then I really enjoyed their one photo shoot for the Half-Baked. Not so much the other one, but they still have tons of personality on the runway, and they both looked amazing. So I think that Team Latrilla definitely deserved a high placement. Now, for the bottom three, I actually put Yara and Alexis in the safe position. I felt that their opposites attract photo shoot was a little bit more high concept and something that I was looking for different because everyone just kind of posed and did the same thing. This one was a little bit different, just like Rujubee's was, so I appreciated that. So they're out of the bottom three, which leaves Team Shad, Team Brown Flowers, and Team Mandora in the bottom three. I ended up saving Team Brown Flowers from the bottom because there was nothing objectively bad about any aspect of the challenge for them. There wasn't anything that really stood out to me. They kind of just did average, fine across the board for me. Their runway wasn't super matchy. Their photo shoot was, I guess, fine. It met the criteria, but it wasn't anything crazy. So I felt that they could have pushed it, especially with both of their crazy fun personalities. I was lacking a little bit of that from them in the challenge this week, so I decided to put them as low, and that leaves Team Shad and Team Mandora in the bottom two, which is exactly what happened in this episode. So as we know, Chad sends home Mimi. Yeah, I think that storyline where Pandora won't get along with her teammate and then gets sent home for it is kind of a great way to start the season. Like, hey, you better put up with what with what shit we give you, or you're out of here. So let's move on. Our top 5 in the Gaffin, this dumb challenge, which I never want to watch again as long as I live. Again, my placements are going to be a little bit different. I decided to keep Yara Sofia and Alexis Mateo as the winners. I do think that Yara definitely carried the team. Alexis's Shakira was just kind of there and not very Shakira, which is kind of a fun flip on Yara going home for Shakira on All Stars 6. So that's just a fun little tidbit or whatever. But I decided not to give Rujubi the win because there were actual issues with Raven's B. Arthur impression. The voice wasn't there. And while Alexis wasn't great as Shakira, there wasn't a note that was like, you did this wrong. She could have been more high energy, but there wasn't an aspect of her Shakira that was inherently wrong. So I decided let's just give it to Yara and Alexis, and Raven and Jujubee can be in the top with them in the high placement. That leaves Team Shad, Team Latrilla, and Team Brown Flowers in the bottom 3. And I'm going to make a controversial, which I don't really think is controversial, decision to save Latrilla from the bottom. In my opinion, Chad Michaels' Betty Davis was flat, wasn't very funny. The voice was there, I guess. She looked gorgeous, but it just, there was no personality there. When Betty Davis, you can really take big if you wanted to. And then Chanel's Lucille Ball, as someone who watched I Love Lucy growing up all the time, it just didn't have the spark, the fun. Like, Lucille Ball was just a ball of joy. Yeah, no pun intended. And I was missing that from Chanel. It just kind of was a little bit wonky and a little bit clunky for me. So I didn't think either of them met the standard that was set by some of the other queens in this challenge. And I felt the same way about both Nina and Tammy. The difference and the reason why I decided to keep Latrilla out of the bottom is because Manila had a pretty spot on Madonna impression. And I think Madonna is someone who's kind of hard to impersonate because she doesn't have like a huge personality. She's not like a walking caricature like some of the other choices that the queens made this episode, like a Shakira, like a Charo, like a Fran Drescher. So for Manila to do pretty well as Madonna, I thought was a solid performance. And they did have some moments that were clunky and awkward while they were shooting, but so did Team Brown Flowers, and I'm sure that Shad did as well. We just might not have seen it. It seemed to me like they were really highlighting that Manila and Latrice were having some communication issues on set as like almost a reason to put them in the bottom. But in my opinion, out of the 6 queens in this bottom 3, Manila was the only one who had a spot on impression. So I felt like that should have kept her team out of the bottom. Also, they both looked great on the runway. So I'm going to keep them in the low position. And we have Chanel and Chad Michaels and Nina Flowers and Tammy Brown in the bottom 2. Now the question is, who would Team Shad pick for this lip sync? It's a very show-toony kind of lip sync. I think they probably would have picked Chanel. Chanel is definitely more of an animated lip syncer in my opinion. And Tammy did really well, but I still think that Chanel would send Tammy home here. Chanel is obviously a showgirl and has a big personality when she's on stage lip syncing. So especially a song like this where she doesn't have to like jump into the splits or anything, she can just kind of own the stage. I think Chanel could really do well in this lip sync and send home Team Brown Flowers in 5th place. So now we move on to this really stupid queen pranking in the streets episode, which to me makes no sense. And why is it on the show? Whatever. Obviously, this episode could have been rigged. They could have just said, oh, they had this many points and they had this many points. But I'm going to just keep the placements from the actual episode because that's what it was based on, is who had the most points. So Team Shad is going to win. Team Yarlexis is going to be in the top. And then we have a Raven and Jujubee and Manila and Latrice bottom 2. And obviously we see Team Latrilla goes home. So there's not really much to talk about with that episode. I can't really say I would do anything different because it was based on points. So let's just move on to the girl group makeover challenge, which in my opinion was very rigged if you watched Rigged. I think that the win could have gone to either Raven and Jujubee or Yara and Alexis. I think they both had positives and negatives in their performances, and they were very vastly different. Team Yara Alexis was very focused on like playing with the crowd and making sure that the crowd was involved and had a very streamlined look, whereas I think Team Rujubee was way better with the choreo and with the actual performance. So I also looked at the makeover part, who had a better makeover. And it was obviously Yarlexis because KDB would not let Rujubee put her in drag. So she just looked like a regular everyday woman on the street. So because of that, I decided to give the win to Yarlexis, which means that Raven and Jujubee are going to be in the bottom with Chanel and Chad. And if you watched Rigged, you know why I felt Chad and Chanel had the worst performance. The critiques even said so. They didn't look like a girl group. Their makeover really outshined them. They looked like her backup dancers, and they just didn't shine as much as the other two teams did, in my opinion. So we have them lip syncing to Don't Ya by the Pussycat Dolls, and I think they would pick Chanel maybe because Chanel can like serve more sex than Chad, but really it doesn't matter because Raven is going to win this no matter what. Raven did so good and was giving sex like only Raven can. So Chad and Chanel, this is their third time in the bottom. They are going to be eliminated here, which interesting that the winner of the season is gone before the finale, 2 episodes before the finale. But yeah, let's just move on with our final 2 groups, Rujubee and Yarlexis, to do the superhero challenge. I am going to say I think Yarlexis could win this. I'm not super sure on what they would do, and I think that their main problem might be that their ideas might be a little bit too confusing, which was, I feel like, Shad's problem. But knowing Yara, she is going to bring the most insane looks imaginable, and I think that Rujubee would win in this case. I do think that Team Yarlexis could have better looks because obviously Yara is an amazing seamstress and goes all out for everything. But I also feel like they would have the same problem that Shad did, which was I just see their backstories and the whole story arc of their characters being completely convoluted. I think that especially Yara has a hard time streamlining and editing herself when she's on the show. And I think this season Alexis was kind of put in the passenger seat and Yara was kind of running the team. So I just think that while they might look good, I think that their characters that they would make would definitely be something completely wild and crazy, kind of like Team Shad's was, and might not meet the assignment as well as Rujubee, even though I think that they would look better than Rujubee. But like I said in Rigged, that was not the whole point of this episode. It wasn't just about the runway, it was about the backstories and the characters. So I'm going to say that Rujubee probably would edge out Team Yarlexis in this challenge. And we're going to have the lip sync to Dancing on My Own to Yarlexis instead. Now the question is, do we have the crying moment? Are they going to break down? Are they going to be sobbing in each other's arms like Rujubee did? I'm not sure. So I guess there's 2 possibilities here, which is they both get saved and all 4 go into the finale, or they save one of them, who I think would probably be Alexis. Alexis is just a better lip syncer overall. And I think that they're probably going to save Alexis. I just don't see them having the breakdown moment that Rujubee did. Obviously, they have that breakdown moment in season 3. And they've already been in this situation before where they had to lip sync against each other. So it's kind of like, all right, we've been here. Let's just get this thing over with. And I just don't think that we're going to see as much emotion from them as we did Rujubee at this point in time on the season. So I do think Alexis would win this lip sync and send Yara Sofia home, which means we have 3 queens going into the finale. Now they have to do like a Hamburger Mary's gig, and they have to do a stand-up, and then there's a runway. There's a lot of aspects to this episode. What we saw was that Raven and Jujubee both did very well in the stand-up, better than I think Alexis could do. As for the runway, I mean, Raven and Jujubee both looked pretty basic. I do think Alexis probably would bring something way better, a higher caliber, kind of like Chanel did on this runway. But I just don't see a world in which Raven and Jujubee aren't top 2 in this situation. I mean, for the whole storyline here of Jujubee in the final 2, it just is, I think it would be too good for producers to pass up on. And Chad isn't here as someone they like need to crown. So I think that we would get probably a Raven and Jujubee final 2. And they would cut Alexis at final 3. So we have Raven and Jujubee lip syncing to the offensive RuPaul song, which we don't need to discuss. And the question is, who would win between Raven and Jujubee? I really don't know. I don't know, because they would probably film both, as they did every season after season 4. And really, I think it would come down to popularity. I think that Jujubee would win. I mean, there's a whole narrative that Raven was robbed, but I think that was Raven against Chad. Raven against Jujubee, I think that Jujubee would probably win, especially because, I don't want to say every week, but at certain points in the season, it seemed like Jujubee was carrying Raven more than Raven was carrying Jujubee, especially during like the Gaffin and the Girl Groups Challenge. So I think overall, Jujubee did a better job this season than Raven did. And I think that she had probably just like the tiniest bit more of fan support than Raven did. So, I mean, think about it. If we didn't have a rigged season, Jujubee could have won Drag Race like almost a decade ago. Like, think about that reality. But then we also wouldn't get her back for All Stars 5. So, like I said before, I'm completely fine with Chad winning and, you know, putting the crown on the shelf and being done with Drag Race so that we get to see all these other queens get to come back and Jujubee come back and slay another season. So let me know what you think. There was a lot of things breaking down the season that I was like, oh, does it go this way? Does it go this way? I could see both. So I would not be shocked if you guys disagreed with some of my decisions, because I honestly could see a lot of scenarios happening. And this is just kind of what I fell on in the moment after watching it again. So let me know, what do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And do you think this would have been a better season overall? Do you think we would look back at All Stars 1 with fonder memories if it had played out like this, rather than if it had played out like it did? So let me know. I want to say thank you to all of my patrons. Here are my social media handles, and thank you guys so much for watching. It has been a long day solving the mystery of where the hell I can get Juju some fried chicken. Like, stat. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.